Round two. Okay, we're up to Lamed Dalid Amid Beis. Lamed Dalid Amid Beis. We were in discussion of women of Havchana waiting 3 months between pregnancies to ascertain who the father of the child is, because there's two pregnancies, there's 9 month or a 7th month. So we're up to the Gemara Amar Shmuel. We're 7 lines up on Lamed Dalid Amid Beis. Amar Shmuel, the Kulan, and all women, the Kulan, and all these women that we're going to say that have to go ahead and we have to do Havchana. Not just the previous women. We're going to see other women in the upcoming prakim that you have to do Havchana. Call them all these women that, well, actually we'll see that these women were forced. Kulan tzrichim hamden shlosh chadashim with chutz migiyoires, a convert, umeshachreres kitana. In other words, if there are a giyoris and mishreres kitana, then we can figure that they're not pregnant, and you would not have to wait 3 months to go ahead and marry them. Abel kitana bas Yisrael tzrichim lahampim gimel chadashim, because we'll be geyser kitana at the gedola. If you go ahead and do not have, even though a kitana can't get pregnant, even Yisrael elis kitana, but what we're worried about is the gedola, that if you don't wait by the katana, you won't come to wait by the gedola. So therefore, you have to wait. The Gemara is obviously going to discuss what about Giyaris. Why don't we guys are there? So, what are we speaking about over here, right? Ibn Mion, if we're speaking about a katana that Mion was performed, Shmuel says you don't have to wait 3 months. In other words, so why does he say katana Yisrael you have to? He says over here you don't. If you beget and she was divorced with a get, Shmuel Chodazim, the Shmuel already said that. Shmuel, me and a boy, ain't it tzrich lahamtin shlesh chodashim. Me and you don't have to wait. Nasan laget sarach lahamtin shlesh chodashim. So therefore, what are we speaking about over here? This katana that he said that you have to wait. What are we speaking about? If it's speaking about me and you don't have to wait. If it's speaking about get, he's being repetitious. It says, what is he speaking about? It's speaking about business. It's not speaking about that there was a relationship. It was a katana that had been forced, or even if she acquiesced, but you have to wait 3 months. You have to wait 3 months. Now, why would you have to wait 3 months? Amid Aleph, as I told you, because the Rabbanan kitana mishum gedola, and the Rabbanan are geyser kitana because of gedola. That, in other words, if you let you marry katana without waiting 3 months, you might come to marry gedola without waiting 3 months. Fred Gemara umiz kasrina katana mishum gedola. Are you geyser? In fact, are you geyser katana mishum gedola? Okay. But Tanan, we learned what in the Mishnah. But Tanan we have a Mishnah. What does the Mishnah say? Right? Im hoyu, the woman that switched in our Mishnah, ketanos, shein royas leiled, that they're not roy to go ahead and give birth. Machsirun said miyad, and you don't have to wait. In other words, guys, this sugya had to somehow connect to our Mishnah. In our Mishnah, we said in the case where the people got mixed up, right? And we said you have to wait 3 months to see if the child, whose child it is, if the child's a mamzer or not. And however, if it's a katana, you do not have to wait. Good. So how can Shmuel argue on a Mishnah? Mishnah says you don't have to wait, and Shmuel says you do have to wait. Shmuel says it's gezerah. You see from our Mishnah that they weren't geyser because you don't have to wait. So Rav Gidl Amarav, right, is hayrosha hoysa. That was the din that it says in the Mishnah was made for that time. It was a rosha. In mashma that it was a one-shot deal. Fred the Gemara mechlal the hava, that this maisa of the woman getting switched really happened. Now, fellas, it doesn't mean that it's odd. It's an impossibility. What it means is when the Gemara tells you an event that occurred, it'll say the words in the Mishnah, Maisa Shahaya. There was an incident that was. It'll use the language Maisa Shahaya. So if you're telling me that really you have to wait 3 months. Over here in the Mishnah, they gave a hayra, a psak that you don't have to 3 months. And speaking about a case that happened, then they should have introduced it with the words Maisa Shahaya. There was a case that was. Ella, what do you have to say? But so it doesn't mean there was an actual case, but it was like a Rosh Shah that they weren't goyzer on a katana, right? Why? Because v'chiluf lo-shchichi. Since it's not shchiach to go ahead and mix up your wives, milsa lo-shchichi lo-gozer v'rabbanan. Okay, so let's go outside. Let's repeat what I just said. Says Shmuel, a katana of a eved or a goyita that becomes a Jew, you do not have to wait 3 months. Conversely, a katana of a Jew, you'd have to wait 3 months. Why? Because with geyser, if you don't wait 3 months by a katana, you may not wait 3 months by a gedola. Our Mishnah went ahead and said what you don't have to wait. Says our Mishnah, the reason is that they weren't geyser because milsud leishchicha legazer rabbanan. It was a milsud leishchicha. It wasn't something that was what that was common. That was one lashon of to learn how Shmuel learned the Gemara. Lishna achrina amala. There's another way of Shmuel's din was stated, and it's not speaking about a katana. In the first lashon, guys, was speaking about a katana of an akum or the katana of a shivcha. Shmuel kulon tzrichas lahamtin. All of them you have to wait 3 months. Shlesh chadashim. Why? Chutz migiyoris mushachreches. Right? Gedoyla. If only a gedoyla, not a katana, gedoyla. A gedoyla you do not have to wait, which is going to have to see why. Aval, but if she was a katana that was nivala, bas yisrael ain't tzrichas lahamtin shlesh chadashim. Right? Because they weren't goyzer on a katana. They weren't goyzer on a katana. So every normal situation, a regular gedola of Yisrael, you would have to wait. Giyaris and Meshachreres, you would not have to wait. We'll see why. You won't have to wait. But a katana bas Yisrael, you would not have to wait. So this is exactly the opposite of the infants of the first case. Fred Gemara, B'mai. Why are we speaking about it? Shmuel's case, what are we speaking about? If the katana, right, and she was married by her sister, by her mother or her brother, b'miyan ha'amrit Shmuel chadazimna. Shmuel already said it's in, like as we said before. If he beget, if it's speaking about a get, hakama Shmuel the boy. Shmuel says you do have to wait. Dama Shmuel umiyan a boy ain't tzrich lahamtim. Then you don't have to wait. And so therefore Shmuel would have said it one time before. Shleish chadashim. So therefore, it must be speaking. Ella must be speaking biznus, right? Ubiznus bekatana l'shchiach. Since by biznus by katana l'shchiach, therefore legaz b'rabbanan. So in the first lashon bas Yisrael, you had to wait. They weren't geyser in our Mishnah. Over here, bas Yisrael, they said you don't have to wait because the gezerah. But ordinarily, you would have to wait 3 months. Now, Fred the Gemara Kasha. Giyaris u'meshachreres, the shchicha boiznus ligzar. You said every gedola you have to wait, with the exception of a giyaris and an eved. That if they go ahead and they join the tribe, you don't have to wait. But 1 second, why aren't we geyser, right? That they should require in order to go ahead and discern between if she was pregnant when she was a goyita or a shivcha versus when she's a yid. Says the Gemara, and for the Gemara, Shmuel says the Omar by the Giyaris and the Shechroid. Rabbi Yosi also Rabbi Yosi. The Tanya, Hagiyaris v'hashvuya v'hashivcha, a Giyaris or a captive or a shivcha sheniftu, that they were going ahead, they were redeemed from the captives. Ushenisgayro, ushenishtachru, or they converted or they were freed. Tzrichas lahamtim shlesh chadashim. You have to wait 3 months. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. However, Rabbi Yosi mater la'ares ulinasem yad. Rabbi Yosi permitted what? Immediately, right away. He permitted right away. So, Omar Rabba, my time with Rabbi Yosi, why did Rabbi Yosi say you don't have to wait? It's because Savi Isha Mizana Mishamesh B'Moich. If a woman is Mizana, she's going to go ahead and use a contraceptive in order to ensure that she doesn't get pregnant. We had this on Daf Yomi. Over there, the moich we said was machlokes Rashi and Tosfos, whether it's some type of what we would call a contraceptive sponge. According to Rashi, you could put it in before bia. According to Tosfos, after bia. Over here, the moich under discussion is going to be another method of contraceptive, and not necessarily a moich. Okay, that a woman, if she knows that she was in an illicit relation, she's going to ensure she doesn't get pregnant. In order that she shouldn't get pregnant. So therefore, these women, the Giyoris and the Shivcha, they know that they're going to be freed, or they know that they're going to go ahead and convert. So therefore, if they did anything, any relation that would result in conception, they're going to go ahead and avoid it. Amalei Abaya, Bishleim Giyoris, very good Giyoris. that Kima the Daita Legure, Minata Nafsha, she'll be careful, won't get pregnant. She'll go ahead and use contraception. Whether a child that was conceived when she was a Gayata or when she was Juk. It's possible the Shame Mimrayu, they heard from the nesters, they're going to be freed. So therefore, a possibility exists for them to use contraception. We know that a shifcha can go out with shem v'ayin. If you knock out the eye or the tooth, they will go free as well, right? They couldn't have possibly anticipated that. So therefore, they should need havchana. When I can anticipate it, that I'm going to be freed or megayer, then it makes sense that they can use contraceptive. And therefore, it's unnecessary havchana. And that's what Shmuel said. Conversely, we have a case of a shifcha that could be freed al yidei shem v'ayin. It's something that happens simultaneously. It's not something she could have anticipated. So if she couldn't anticipate it, then how can you not go ahead and get into havchana in discerning? Maybe she's pregnant from a previous relationship. So hey, says no hekim mishkachasla. The chitema you're going to say anytime called to a mela, anytime that it's possible that it happened without preparation. Moida Rabbi Yossi, that Rabbi Yossi would be moida, that you'd have to wait 3 months. In other words, Rabbi Yossi's whole svara is that since they can anticipate being freed, they can go ahead and anticipate ensuring the change, make sure that they're not pregnant. Masha'en came where they couldn't be insured. So, for example, Shein v'ayin, having an eye or a tooth knocked out, you couldn't anticipate. Maybe Rabbi Yossi is moida in that situation. Maybe there he would be moida. Moida Rabbi Yossi sheyesh anusa mafuta tzurich lahapen shlosh chadashim. Right? Says the Rabbi Chitema kilma mela. Moida Rabbi Yossi. That what? I've had time. We went in the brisa. Anusa mafuta, one that was forced and one that was seduced. Tzurich lahapen shlosh chadashim. They were Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi matil aris lenasa miyan. Now, an anusa, if she was forced, she couldn't have anticipated, guys, right? Use contraceptive. Yet what? Rabbi Yossi still says what? You don't have to wait. So therefore, you have a good kasha. If you're telling me Shmuel's din that you don't have to wait because they can go ahead and be mishamish b'moich, use contraception, so l'chayra, it should apply across the board. But we see it doesn't apply across the board. Because an anusa couldn't have anticipated, she couldn't use contraception, and nonetheless what? And nonetheless she doesn't have to wait. So Elam Rabbi says Baya a different reason for Rabbi Yossi. Not that she's mishameshes b'moich, but isha mizana mishapeches. In other words, an isha that's mizana, even though she couldn't have used contraception beforehand, this we have to. If you're interested in the sugya, you have to go back and see how Rashi, Machlokes Rashi and Tais is based upon this sugya. But be that as it may, in the Havamina of the Gemara, guys, the first derech mishameshes b'moich means using a contraception like Rashi, something beforehand, or even like Tais, even afterwards, right? So l'chayra, she couldn't have had this thing prepared beforehand if she was an anusa, if she'd been forced. So how's it? So therefore, why would Rabbi Yossi say that a woman's forced would not be able to go ahead and wait 3 months? Maybe she's pregnant. And the answer is, if a woman was an anusa, what could she do? She can go ahead and she bid misapeches. It seems to be that they're able to go ahead and invert themselves in a way that the zera of the man will not go ahead and fertilize the egg. It means misapeches, literally to turn over. Shleitis abed, that they shouldn't get pregnant. Now Rabbi Yehuda disagreed, that he said you have to wait 3 months. Why wouldn't he agree? He says, in all the books of contraception, you never find this as being one of the methods. And if it is, certainly it's not one of the better ones. So therefore, what? It was, again, so that's the machlokes. Now, the last part of the Mishnah, if she was a kehenis, means she's a bas kohen. So now, guys, if you look at the Mishnah, it's very interesting because there's a gersa change here that's very subtle. It's very subtle. If you look at the Mishnah on Lamed Gimel Lamed Beis, now this is the situation where they switched with husbands. In other words, they were with somebody that wasn't their husband. And as mentioned many times over, nus does not necessarily mean you're a zoina. It means you're with somebody that passels you, right? So if you weren't mafka yourself over here, you ended up with a man that wasn't your husband, albeit b'shogeg, as we said. Then we said didn't say that they switched, but huchlafu, they were switched. They were switched. So now, if they were switched and she was a bas kohen, then what? A daughter of a kohen. she would not eat truma. That's what it says. She wouldn't eat truma. Now, if I have a girsa over here, nifsla minach kahuna. The Marshal has a girsa here, nifsla minach kahuna, fellas. And we're going to see in the Gemara why that makes much more sense. Because in the half minute, it's going to be speaking about she can't marry a Kohen. And then the teretz is going to mean she can't eat truma. So truma is only introduced in the teretz of the Gemara. It's mashma, it's not part of the Mishnah. Says the Gemara, the imhoya kehenois in, says the Gemara, and what, the Yisraelis loy. Let's say Yisraelis is married to a Kohen and she's with another man. She will become puzzle. So the diak of the Mishnah is, why do you say only if a Kohenis was another man is she puzzle from the Kohen? Even if it's Yisraelis is married to a Kohen, she's puzzle. So after the Gemara, Ema im hoyu nishei kahanim, say if they're the wives of kahanim, then they're puzzle from them. So whether they're the wives of Kohen because they're Kohenis, or wives of a Kohen, she's a Yisraelis, if this illicit relation takes place, then she'll be puzzle because she's with what? Someone who's not her husband. Fred the Gemara, the Shei Kahanim in, only the wives of Kahanim will be puzzle, the Shei Yisrael loy. Let's say a man is married to Yisraelis and she was raped. She could marry a Kohen either. Any woman that was forced upon by another man can't marry a Kohen. So what's your diak? If a wife of a Kohen was forced, she's puzzle kahuna. Mashma, if the wife of the Yisraelis was forced, she's not puzzle from the kahuna. She's also puzzle from the kahuna. So your inference is not correct. One more time. The Shei Kahanim in, the Shei Yisraelim loy, Dafka and the Shei Kahanim that were forced by another man, they're puzzle kahuna. The Shei Yisraelim loy, they're not. I Rav Amram, Hamilsa Amala of Sheshis. This Sheshis taught us this. And he mamish lit up our eyes with this pshat. Mimas Nisan. Ish Eshes Yisrael, Shenanessa, Eshes Yisrael that was forced. Afa Pishim Muteris Labaila, even though she's married to a husband, she's mutter and permitted to a husband. Basula Lakahuna, she's Pasal Lakahuna. So therefore, what is pshat in our Mishnah? In other words, and now, guys, you see from the dialogue, when we didn't mention the word truma at all we're speaking about is puzzle for a kohen. Guys, if she's a Yisraelis, married to Yisraelis, and she's forced by another man, she can't eat truma? She could never eat truma, right? That's why it's not so geschmack, the girsa of our Mishnah. It's mashma from over here. All we're discussing is what? Is whether she's puzzled to marry a kohen or not. If a woman is forced, if you know she's forced, regardless of who her lineage, whether she's a Bas Kohen or a Bas Levi, a Bas Yisrael, she will not be able to marry a kohen. That's it. Out. She's out. That's it. She's out, right? So what's pshat in the Mishnah? What's pshat? So Amarava, here's pshat when it says kehenos. Here's pshat. Elahachi kaman. If these women were daughters of Kahanim that were married to Yisraelim, now here's the halacha: if their husband dies or they get divorced and there's no children, they go back to daddy's house. Guys, you got it? And eat truma. As long as there's no children, she can eat truma. So now, when it's said in our Mishnah Kehenis, until now we thought it was speaking of the wives of Kahanim. It's not. It's speaking about the daughters of Kahanim. And we're not speaking Le'inyal marrying into the Kahuna. We're speaking about a totally different din. The uniqueness of a Kahanis, a Kohen, she eats Truma. She eats Truma. So now, Ella, here's what we're speaking about. If she was the daughter of a Kohen, Hanasuras Yisrael, that was married to Yisrael, right? Nifsalu minat truma de manashayo. Not only if she's forced on by another man, in other words, let's say she was with another man who wasn't a husband, so she would not only will she not be able to live with her husband anymore, she will not be able to eat truma anymore. So let's learn Pshat in the Mishnah, the Maskana. Two people get married. Now, according to this, they must be twins, right? In order to be chayiv for the scenario to be chayiv for Eishes Ach, if they're brothers, and if it's so, they would have to be an Achasishtoi, And if you want to learn the nidus scenario, they would have to be twins in order to be chayav for nida, that they'd have to be 13 years old to the day and 12 years old to the day, right? That was something pointed out this morning, that they were twins. So in addition, so not only would they now not be able to go back to their husbands because they're puzzled to the kahuna, right? They also be puzzled to truma. They'd also be puzzled to truma. So this is nothing to, they can't go back. Forget about it. They're finished. Even if it's b'shoigeg. Guys, all the other cases, if it was a regular Jew, not a kohen, since they were shoigegim, they would be able to go back to their husbands. And now the Mishnah is concluding, however, if they're benos kahanim, not only can't they go back to their husbands, because why? Because they live with another man, they're puzzled. In addition, they would not be able to eat truma. Hadran alecha arba achin, hadran alecha arba achin, hadran alecha arba achin. If it wasn't Pesach, I think we should throw a little C. I'm just finishing this parak. Okay. Next parak. Nice, easy blot tonight, guys. No sweat blot. Hashem was very good. He's always good. Sometimes it's more obvious than others. When you have a day like today, busy day, Erev Pesach, this was a good blot when you try to get 2 blot in. So we all know that you can give chalitza. We know you give chalitza. B'makam yibum. We know that the status of a woman who received chalitza is analogous to the woman who was divorced. So therefore, a man is not able to marry achas gerusha so. If a man's wife is divorced, his brother can marry her. If a man gives chalitza to a woman, taking the zika of the brother, you would not be able to marry her because it's your brother's wife. That stays. In addition, if she was your sister, it was, let's say it was, you were married to her sister, right? And she got chalitza, right? And your sister is dead. You will not be able to marry her because she's achos chalitza, so the sister of your chalitza that you want to receive chalitza to. Says the Mishnah. If someone gives chalitza to Yevamot, and it turns out she was pregnant. So now, is she a chalutza or not? The nafkaminas would be le'inyan the kroivim that we discussed, le'inyan relationships, which the Gemara will go into, and also le'inyan marrying a kohen. A kohen can marry a chalutza. But in this case, the chalitza could have been unnecessary because she was pregnant. So now, and she gives birth. When the vlad is a ben kayama, meaning the vlad is over 30 days old, or you saw from the features that it was a full-fledged 9-month pregnancy. Once it goes out of 30 days, it's yotze michlal nefel. Literally, people taicha nefel is a miscarried child. That's a misnomer. It's not only a nefel can be a child that dies before it reaches 30 days, right? A child can be a nefel. In that case, if who muta b'krova secha, he'd be muta in her relatives that normally you would not be a muta to if you were a chalutza. V'himu teres b'krovav, and she be muta in his relatives. In other words, this is in the chalitza pashtus. V'lei posla min kahuna, and she's not puzzled from the kahuna because again it was totally unnecessary. Since she was pregnant, she never fell to yibum, guys. She never fell to yibum since she was pregnant. Eina vlad shel kayama. Now, how about if she received chalitza, the vlad dies? Is that first chalitza, is she considered a chalutza or not? So we're going to get into that in the Gemara. So who osu b'krovav seha v'yasur b'krovav upaslam in kahuna. So for all intents and purposes, she is a full-fledged what? She is a full-fledged chalutza. The opposite, you do yibum and you find out she was pregnant. Hakoina says yevimtoi v'nimtzumu beres. Now you got a bigger problem, guys. You got a bigger problem. You were boil. You had relations with your brother's wife. This is an Issacharus. By chalitza, the only shiler is the after effect of it. Over here, you got to pay the piper for what you did, right? Because you're living with your brother's wife. Shaloi b'maka mitzvah. Because since she was pregnant, there's no mitzvah of Yevamot Yavo Eleha. It bleibt Eishesach. Eishesach is in Issacharus. So Akonis says Yevimtoi v'nimtzis muberes v'yolda bisman she'avlad shel kayama Yotzin, you have to divorce her, because again, really, you shouldn't even need a get, because why? Because you were never married to her. You were never married to her. Kedushin is not tofes by chayv elavim. If it's a chayv elavim, kedushin is not tofes. B'chayovim b'karbin, and like any other chi of karis, b'shoigeg, you'd have to bring a carbon chatas. Any of the chi of chatas b'shogeg, you have to bring a carbon chatas. If ein vlad shel kayama, conversely, if the blood is not kayama, then you kayim. You could go ahead and stay with her. Mashma the yibum was what? It was a very good yibum. So again, just to recap, chalitza yibum seems to be saying if the child lives, the chalitza is not a chalitza. If the child lives, the yibum is not a yibum. With the ramifications being by chalutza, it seems to be great. You're off the hook in everything, right? There's no effect on the woman. She could marry a kohen. All the krayim are permitted because the chalitza wasn't a chalitza. Conversely, by yibum, if that child lives, you will boil your eshes ach, your brother's wife. You're chayav what? You're chayav a carbon for that, and this woman you'd have to divorce because you're not married to this woman. Safik ben Tisha Larisha and Safik ben Shiva La'achroin. The halacha is Yoitze Vavad Kosha, the Chayavim Ba'ashem Talui. Right? Yeah, we'll see what the case is now. Let's say in this scenario, the child, you don't know who's the child, whether it's the child of the first guy or the child of the second guy. Is it a mamza? No. If it's the first guy's marriage, great. If it's the second guy's right, also great. Because if it's the second guy, that means she fell to Yibum. And it was the first guy, she didn't fall to Yibum. So either way, Memanav Shach, the child is Kasha. But Memanav Shach, we're just ascertaining in this case, the child will be a Kasha and everything will be okay. However, since it's a suffix, whether you don't know who it is, you have to be an Asham Tali. There are a few Karban Hashamos, Asham Ila, Asham Nazi, Asham Tzaira, Asham Shef Charufa, Asham Kazelos. Those are the 5. In addition, there's something called an Asham Tali. Tali means suspended. If you're in a scenario where you're unsure if you were chayav a chi of chatas, so you bring an Asham Tali to protect you from einish, and if at a later date you found out that you were chayav, then you bring a carbon chatas. So, for example, you have 2 pieces of meat in front of you. One is kosher fat and one is treifa fat. You eat one of them. You don't know which one it was. Therefore, you bring an asham tali because maybe I was over chayav chiv kares because chaylev is a kares. And if you find out later that you ate the chaylev, you have to bring a chatas. So over here as well, you don't know whether you were or you weren't boil your wife's right. You don't know. In that case, you bring what an asham tali because you're not sure. Itma hachoylitz lemu beres v'hipila. You give chalitza to a pregnant woman and she miscarries. V'hipila means she mamish miscarries. Rabbi Yochanan Amar says Rabbi Yochanan, Eina tzricha chalitza. You do not need chalitza mina achen. But why? Because even though she was pregnant, the chalitza, once she was mapil, the chalitza retroactively seems to be a good chalitza. In other words, we don't say since she was pregnant, the chalitza is not a good chalitza, but she doesn't need chalitza and she's free to marry. She's not a Yevam l'shuk, she's free. Reish Lakish Amar, Reish Lakish is of the opinion, tzricha chalitza mina achen. You would need chalitza from the achen. Good? So again, let's get it straight to Shitas. Rabbi Yochanan, it's a good chalitza. Reish Lakish, it's not a good chalitza. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, ein sar chalitza mina achen, chalitza mu'berish ma chalitza, u'biyah mu'berish ma biyah. It's considered good chalitza, it's considered a good biyah, provided that the child doesn't live. What's the svaras namachlekes? Iba yisem akra, I could tell you it's a pasuk, how to darshan a pasuk. Iba yisem is svara, or I could tell you it's logic. Iba yisem is svara. Let's take the svara first. Again, Rabbi Yochanan says it is a good chalitza, and Reish Lakish says it's not. Rabbi Yochanan savar im yavei Eliyahu v'yomer the hode abra mapule mapla. If Eliyahu would come and tell you that she was pregnant, she would miscarry. Mi lav bas chalitza v'yibam hi hashtanami tigloi milsel mafreya. So in other words, says Rabbi Yochanan, we will look at it retroactively. if Rabbi Yo would tell you that right now she's pregnant and she's gonna miscarry, so obviously the chalitza would be a good chalitza. It's as if she's not pregnant. So who I did when she in fact she miscarries, retroactively it was a good chalitza. That's the svara of Rabbi Yochanan. Reish Lakish Amar, Reish Lakish is of the opinion, Tigloi Muslim Afreya Lo Yaminan. That we don't say that. As we look in the here and now, right now, does she require chalitza? No, she's pregnant. Later on she wasn't pregnant. Doesn't make a difference. We're not going to say Tigloi Muslim Afreya. Therefore, it is not a good chalitza. That's the svara. Whether you go ahead and view it as retroactive or not. Diba Yisema, I could say it's a pasuk. Rabbi Yochanan Savar uben ein loy. The pasuk says Yevamot yava aleha uben ein loy. Right, and he doesn't have a ben. He doesn't have meaning what? Amrachmana b'halesle. He doesn't have a son. She's pregnant right now. She doesn't have a son. If she doesn't have a son, it's a good chalitza. It's a good yibum. Reish Lakish Savar uben ein loy. You know what that means? Ayin olav. Go take a look at her. You look at her. Ayin loy. Look at her. She's pregnant. That's enough to say that the chalitza is not a chalitza and the bia is not a bia. So we have again. The main thing is the machlokes. Says Rabbi Yochanan, it is good chalitza. It is a good bia. Says Reish Lakish, it's not. Either it's a svara, whether we say that Igloi Muslim Afreya upon the death of the child, that the chalitza was a good chalitza, the bia was a good bia, or it's a pasuk. Says Rabbi Yochanan, it says uben ein loy, it doesn't have, and he doesn't have one. She's pregnant, but right now he doesn't have one. And says Reish Lakish, no, ayin loy, take a look, see what's going to be. And since it's based upon what she's going to be, she's going to have a child. The chalitza is unnecessary, and the yibum is what? It's not a yibum.
So according to Reish Lakish, according to Reish Lakish, why don't you just wait, and then in the circumstance will be mavar.
We're talking about what happened. We're talking about what you did.
Wait the 3 months. Wait.
Again, we're not talking about halacha, what you should do. We're talking about what you did do. We're talking about what you did do.
No, but according to Reish Lakish, what would be a typical chalitza?
Again, you would wait. Heshi, even according to Rabbi Yochanan, you should wait.
Okay, all right.
You should wait according to everyone. We're speaking about where you didn't wait.
Okay.
Eiseve Rabbi Yochanan says it's a good chalitza. The Reish Lakish says it's not a good chalitza, based upon our Mishnah. What did our Mishnah say? Ein avad shel kayama. If the vlad does not live, who asa b'kroiva seha, v'yasur b'kroivav, upasla min kahuna. Now, bishleim l'didi da'amina chalitza muberish shma chalitza mishum hachi pasla. Therefore, she's pasal because it was a good chalitza. Right now, I only found out later on. Since you see the halacha is that what if the child dies, that she's pasal. So what do you see? That it's good chalitza. El lidach like you Reish Lakish. The Amrit chalitza muberes leishma chalitza. Am I pasal min kahuna? Why is she pasal from the kahuna? Guys, why? You're telling me it's not a good chalitza, so why is she pasal? Amalei says Reish Lakish to Yochanan midrabanan. That's only midrabanan ulechumra ba'alma, and it's only a chumra. Says Rashi midrabanan ulechumra. Dilma asi lemishri chalutza lekahuna. Maybe might come to matter a chalutza to kahuna tlayada the havi uberes. Everyone sees that this woman receives chalitza. Not everyone knows the woman was pregnant. Loy Reish Lakish, the chalitza is not a good chalitza, and therefore what really should be mutter marry a kohen. But we're going to say no, she can't marry a kohen because people are not going to know the lumdis that she was. The reason why she married the kohen was because chalitza what? She was pregnant. They're going to say a chalutza can marry a kohen. Right? Remember, we saw earlier in the sector, chalitza is the rabbanan, right? Chalitza is the rabbanan. So therefore, they may come to say, look, here she is, she's a chalitza, she's married a kohen. They didn't realize that since she was pregnant, she wasn't a chalutza, and that's why she can marry a kohen. To avoid that problem in the future, no, go ahead, give a chalitza. The chalitza will view the chalitza as a chalitza, even though it's unnecessary. We'll view the chalitza as a chalitza. Ikedi Ami, others say in another direction. Esrei Reish Lakish Rabbi Yochanan. Reish Lakish who held what? It's not a good chalitza. To Rabbi Yochanan says it is good chalitza if you give chalitza to a mu'beres. Ein havlad shel kayama. If the child dies, who oisa b'krei he yisu b'kreivav upasla min akahuna. Bishleim l'didi da'amina chalitza mu'beres leishma chalitza hanidik tani pasla min akahuna l'chumra v'loy ketani ein et tzricha chalitza min ha'achen. And we don't say she needs chalitza from the brothers. Why? And you don't say she needs chalitza from the brothers. Because why? Because I hold that what? That the chalitza is samazoi, is not necessary. Why are you giving chalitza now? Is because it's a new chalitza. You should not say, you should just say, according to you should just say chalitza min ha'achen. Guys, look at me. She gives chalitza, and the child dies. I hold this chalitza was totally unnecessary, right? You know why she doesn't need chalitza min ha'achen? Because the chalitza is a good chalitza because since it was unnecessary, what? Since it was unnecessary, what? Therefore, the al schumra you giving it, and it worked. Like you, however, Rabbi Yochanan, you say chalitza that you gave what is chalitza is good right away. So what should you have stated? As soon as you did chalitza to meberes, should have said einot tzricha chalitza min ha'achen, because even if she loses the child, it's a good chalitza. I Reish Lakish say the following. I say that chalitza and doesn't say chalitza min ha'achen because it's a chumrah. But like you, it should state that what that you need chalitza. You don't need it's chalitza min ha'achen. That's what you should say, that you have chalitza what from the brothers, because basically, guys, according to you, is a good chalitza. So it should say again. What's the lashon? Eladidach, like you, Rabbi Yochanan, that it is a good chalitza. Ain't it tzrich chalitza min ha'achen mi boile? You should say you don't need chalitza. Well, I gave chalitza to a pregnant woman. She loses the child. Now, what should it say? Ain't it tzricha chalitza min ha'achen? That's what it should say, but it doesn't. Why? Because the chalitza is a chumra ba'alma. Because really you don't need the chalitza because it doesn't help. Really, says the Gemara, Amalei ein achinami. Says Rabbi Yochanan, you're right. It should say that ain't it tzricha chalitza min ha'achen. I did the tana reisha loy pasla. Since in the reisha it said loy pasla, tana seifa pasla. Did I skip? I think I skipped. Yeah. One more. I messed up. Let's go over this more again. Ikedi Amri. 2 lines from where it gets right. Ikedi Amri. Eser Reish Lakish Rabbi Yochanan. Ein avlad shel kayama hu asa b'kreivaseha v'hi asur b'kreivav upasla min hakahuna. Bishleim l'didi. Bishleim according to me. Thank you, Hindi. I'll be on at 9:30. Bishleim l'didi. Very good according to me. Da'amina chalitza beres leishma chalitza hanadiktani pasla min hakahuna. It said she's puzzled from the kahuna l'chumra because she's really what? She's really not puzzled from the kahuna. She's really not. The loikatani ain't tzri chalitza min ha'achen, and I didn't focus on needing chalitza from the brothers. Ella l'didach ain't tzri chalitza min ha'achen mi boile. You should say she doesn't need chalitza min ha'achen. Why? Because she is a chalutza, and of course she's pasla from the kahuna. So why didn't you mention that? Since in the ratio we learned she's not pasal, tana seifa pasla. Even though it was unnecessary to say that, we stated it anyway. If the vlad, right? If the vlad shel kayama, this is the case about where you did yibum. So if the vlad doesn't live, you kayim, then you can go ahead and keep the. You say the yibum is a good yibum because since the child died, she was Yevamot and he was miyabma. And says Rabbi Yochanan that what? Rabbi Yochanan says that's a good yibum. Bishleim the Rabbi Yochanan says damina chalitza muberes shma chalitza. Who says the chalitza of muberes is a good chalitza? Ubia muberes shma bia mishmachi kitani yikayim. We said that what they could say together because it's a good yibum. According to you, Reish Lakish, the Amir who's of the opinion, chalitza muberes loishma chalitza, ubia muberes loishma bia, what should you have to do? Yachsa v'yivol v'yikaimi boile. Guys, look at me. Look at me. What happened? A man did yibum to a pregnant Yevamot. Right now, if this child lives, he's oif gahaktet tsaris. If this child lives, he's oif gahaktet tsaris. Why? Because he would have been boil his brother's wife. Good. Child doesn't live. What does he say? Woo. Woo. Right? What's the din? What does the Mishnah say? Yekayim. They can stay together. Mashma, no further action needed. Why? Because the first bia, when he lived with her, now bia mu'beres, shma bia, like Rabbi Yochanan, and therefore, once the child's dead, we'll say that bia Yevama Yava Eleha was chal, and they live together, Yekayim. But like you, Reish Lakish, who says the bia of a muberes is leishma bia, the Yevama is nothing. Why do you say Yekayim? You know what you're going to have to do? You're going to have to relive with her again because your first one wasn't good since she was pregnant. You'd have to live with her a second time to do yibum. But it doesn't say that. It says Yekayim based on the first bia. But you call the first bia muberes, you call it leishma bia, that it's nothing. It's a very stark kasha on Reish Lakish. One more time. Says the Gemara. They could stay together based on the first relations they had. Because the bia mu'beres shma bia. You Reish Lakish, who said it's not good. The Amr is of the opinion chalitza mu'beres loishma chalitza, ubia mu'beres loishma bia. Yachsa v'yimol yekayim boile. You should have to go back and be boil again, and then be mekayim ha. Says the Gemara, my yekayim, says Reish Lakish. You know what it means, yekayim? Yachsa v'yivol yekayim. Deloy sagi. In other words, talking not enough. The first bia, you would need a second one. So learn yekayim means yachsa v'yivol yekayim a second time, because the first one's not a good one. Ikudiyami, again playing the other side of the fence. Ikudiyami, Eser Reish Lakish Rabbi Yochanan. Reish Lakish is going to Rabbi Yochanan from Yibum. Again, the first two dialogues was from Chalitza, and now it's from Yibum. Eser Reish Lakish, who says that Yibum loishma bia, that it's not.
Sorry, I didn't.
I got Siri interrupting me. Now, Eser Reish Lakish Rabbi Yochanan, Ein avad shel kayama yekayim. Bishleim lidi da'amina chalitza muberes loishma chalitza. Ubi muberes loishma bia. Hainu diktani yekayim. What does that mean? Yachsa v'yivul v'yekayim. Bleisagi blavchachi. Elidach, according to you, ratza yotzi, ratza yekayim boile. It should be up to you whether you want to go ahead or keep her or not. Well, now, why should it be totally right if he wants to go ahead right and keep her or not? In other words, because he has the option, rotza, meaning if he wants to keep her, he wants to divorce her. Like you, she already is mekuyim, right? Bishlem like me, yekayim means you have to do another action to keep married. But according to you, you're already married. So just say rotza, you can keep it. Below rotza, you can give a get, right? That you can go ahead and give a get, which either way, you could do it either way. Says the Gemara, einachinami. You could have listed that. I did Tana Reisha, Yoitzi, Tananami B'Sefer Yekayim. Since you learned in the Reisha, you learned Yoitzi, you learned in the Sefer Yekayim. Okay, we'll stop over here. Bez Hashem will continue tomorrow. And I thank everyone for rejoining and listening. It's been a pleasure.